Hey everyone, I hope you are doing well. I am doing great and I'm happy and excited to be sharing with you guys once again on this podcast, Beautiful. Today we are on episode 5. And before I forget to introduce myself, my name is Leanne, and the name or the title of this episode is Beauty Dressed, right? So, as you might maybe guess already, we'll be talking about clothing today. And clothing is very, very broad. I will not be going into like styles or colors or lengths and things like that. I'll just be touching on a few things that I think will be helpful or would be just good to consider when we're getting dressed, right? So, first things first, obviously, when we meet someone for the first time, or when we're just passing by, or going to a company or going somewhere, one of the first things that we notice about people is what they're wearing. Because unlike God, we don't see the heart first, we see the external first. So I think that's why it's very important to talk about dressing, right? So let me share today's verse and then we'll dive right into today's talk on dressing. So the verse that I have is from Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 1, I think. It says, I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. I love this verse. I actually thought it meant something completely different. I interpreted it like completely differently from what it actually means. So I found out that this verse means that the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley is the beautiful of the most beautiful. And I think this ties in very well with today's topic, like beauty dressed. I think as we put on our clothes, our attitude towards ourselves is very important. I can have the most beautiful clothes, the most beautiful shoes, the most beautiful dresses, but if I do not recognize that I'm dressing someone who is already beautiful, I can actually dim my beauty or even dim the beauty of the clothes that I'm putting on. So I really love this verse, and I think it coincides very well that as we put on our clothes, it's good to remember that I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. I am the beautiful of the most beautiful. Even when I was saying this to myself, like I was like, for real? Are you? But actually realizing that yes, I am. It's only that sometimes we downplay ourselves so much and we compare ourselves to other people so much that we do not realize our own beauty and how beautiful it is, how uncomparably beautiful we are. So, yeah, I hope that this is a good primer or like a good basis for us to start putting our clothes on. So, with that being said, here's another verse as we jump right into what we're going to be talking about today. This one is from 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 31. And I'm sorry today I will be sharing a little bit more verses, but I hope it will be able to add some spice, to make this whole talk more meaningful or more helpful. So this verse says that whatever you do all to the glory of God. I love this verse. I've always, whenever from the first time I heard it, I always knew, whatever you do all things to the glory of God, so that, we see God's glory, God's power. But when I actually looked at what the word glory means, it blew my mind because I'd never seen it that way. The first definition I Googled this. The first definition I got is that glory means great honor by notable achievements, right? And then the second one was that glory means great beauty or magnificence, which was so amazing because now, especially with what we're talking about today, that whatever we do, we should do all things to the glory of God, do all things to show the great beauty and magnificence of God. So if my clothes or the way that I'm dressed is not saying God is beautiful, in whatever context, I'm no longer giving God glory. Even if I am encouraged, yes, we are encouraged to dress modestly, but I think sometimes we substitute modesty with poor, poor looking or ugly. It just means moderate, like in between. So if I find myself wearing maybe a long, not cute dress, something like that, I'm no longer being modest. I'm actually being immodest. I'm no longer representing that great beauty of God. So I thought that this will be really good to take note of, because God is beautiful. And I really think that God is stylish, because he has eyes of fire. Like, that just blows my mind. Like, I feel like it was just a statement on its own for God to have eyes of fire. He could have chosen black, blue, purple, but he was like, nah, I want the fire. And I feel like that just shows how stylish God is. He's the one who created the leopard print that we put on, the snake print that we put on, and even when Adam and Eve, when they sinned in the Garden of Eden, he actually took animal skin and used it as their clothes. So I really feel like God is he's also into clothing and stylish about it as well. As I was saying, that he's the one who created the leopard print that we put on, that snake print that we put on, the red roses, the red on those roses, the green on the grass. He's the one who did all of that. And now for me to show up in a dull, sad, raggedy outfit, I think sometimes he gets disappointed, because he is beautiful and he wants us to look and to be beautiful as well. So, moving on, I thought of just looking at two reasons, like just finding two reasons why we dress. The primary reasons, we dress for many different reasons, but the primary reasons we dress is one, to cover up, that is to cover our nakedness, and two, to present or to beautify. Right? So clothes can be a way of expression. They show how we feel, what we want, and sometimes where we're coming from. And I think that's one thing that clothes, there's actually, I think there's one thing that clothes covers apart from our body parts. That is our business. Because when we're down or maybe depressed or stressed, we mostly tend to put on, not so good looking or ugly clothes that have no coordination and maybe sometimes might not be ironed. We just don't pay attention to what we're wearing because of what's going on. And by dressing like that, we're telling people what's going on in our lives. And gossipers, unfortunately, they're there. Gossipers will feast on that. But on the flip side, when we dress well despite what is happening at home or inside or in our business, we actually cover ourselves. We cover the information in our lives. We cover the business of our lives. So just like we put passwords on our phones, just like we put passwords on our computers and laptops and tablets, clothes are a security measure that we take when we're going out into the world. So it's important for us to just be considerate of what we're putting, because it's also information that we're giving out. Same thing as when we're trying maybe to date someone, especially us as ladies. Sometimes we make the mistakes of overly dressing to impress, or maybe sometimes to appear sexy. So although I'm physically covered, our emotions and intentions are still naked. We make it obvious that, maybe this is how I feel or something like that. Especially when it comes to like trying to make yourself appealing to people. Sometimes it may end up being repulsive because it may appear to be desperate when we overdress to impress. So I think that it's very important just to check ourselves, as in like, what am I wearing and what kind of information is it saying about me, not in a crazy way, but just, just to check it, right? So some people say that we should, dress for yourself. Some people say that we should dress for other people. I think both statements make sense. Ultimately, though, I think the most important thing is to be comfortable in your own skin wherever you go. I think context is very important when it comes to dressing, like the context of who you are as a person and where you're going in society. And the reason why I think this is important is because if you still remember from episode 2 and 3, the core of beauty is countenance, it's that glow. So every time I put something on that makes me timid or that makes me uncomfortable, I put a blanket over my beauty. I make myself, I feed a certain amount of fear or a certain amount of timidness within me, and that covers my beauty. Instead of me shining and being comfortable and being able to express myself more, I actually cover my beauty in that way, which is not good. Of course, I mean, we should be comfortable to a certain level. I can't go to a wedding wearing t-shirts and gym tights, and just some some gym sneakers. That might be comfortable to me as a person, but the context of where I'm going might not, I might end up not being comfortable in that setting. Same thing, if I go to a party and I'm wearing this very, 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 very short and tight dress, or I'm trying to think for the guys, how guys might, overdress. I'm not quite sure, but if I'm not comfortable as a person, even if I'm trying to fit in, I also dim my beauty, because even if I'm in context with where I am, if I'm out of context with who I am, I dim my own personal beauty, right? So I think this is just good to consider as well. I think it's actually, honestly, this can be tied to mental health. I didn't want to put it this way because, yeah, sometimes I feel like mental health, sometimes when people hear the word mental health, they're like, oh, here we go again. But I think that it's good for us to, when we're stable, when we're mentally stable, we can we can make better choices in with what we are wearing, because clothing, it's a decision making process. So if I am mentally stable, if I'm able to make good decisions, I can dress well, I dress better. But if I'm a little, too stressed and not thinking right or not thinking well, I make poor decisions with what I'm wearing. Right? So it's good to ask people to kind of chime in and, say, hey, what do you think about what I'm wearing? But ultimately, we have to make that decision on our own. And one thing that I found to be helpful is that when I don't know what to wear, I should just ask the Lord, please help me to find what I should wear today. I've found that to be very helpful. Sometimes you're like, you get an idea and you're like, oh my goodness, what should I wear? So I think you can even add it to your morning prayer, like, today, Lord, as I go about my day, help me to choose what I can wear or what will help me to shine the most today. Yeah, so I just thought of sneaking that in there if you would like to. That's something that has helped me personally, right? So back to this point, I think being intentional about what we wear is very, very good. It's something that is very helpful. And the other point that I actually found is that for the most part, like